Rush, a game mode which saw the light of day alongside Battlefield Bad Company 2. It was pretty much the bread and butter of that game, and it was quite well received by the Battlefield community at the time. Seeing as it was quite a big hit in Battlefield Bad Company 2, it made its way into Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, and Battlefield 1. But sadly, in Battlefield 1, it didn't quite have the same impact as it did on previous games. In Battlefield 4, you could often find multiple servers with 48, 64 player Rush, or some little bit less chaotic servers with 32 players of Rush, and have some pretty awesome games in those types of servers. But in Battlefield 1, you are hard pressed to find any servers running Rush. Yesterday, while trying to look for a match of Rush, I found 2 servers which were populated and had a few people in queue for them, but that was it. But why is this? Why has Rush died down so much, despite it being essentially the same game mode as previous titles? Is it because the player count? Is it because the maps aren't designed properly for Rush? Is it because just the nature of Battlefield 1 that is a slightly more casual game than previous titles? Why is this? Personally, Rush was one of my favorite game modes in previous titles. I played it with my squad all the time. I thought that it was the prime example of how to work as a team, work as a squad to attain an objective, push through tight choke points, and manage to outsmart the enemy, outflank them, and end up winning the game in some, more often than not, very tense situations where the attacking team only had a few tickets left to get that last objective detonated to win the game, and it was just so much fun playing that in Battlefield 4 with a very good squad. But in Battlefield 1, Rush seems to have lost its luster. At first, when the game launched, you could tell that people still really enjoyed Rush because of previous titles and how it was probably one of their favorite game modes. But after a while, Rush servers started to drop down in population, less and less servers were full, and you was just hard pressed to find a match with Rush as a game mode. I personally think that many things affected the game mode Rush. First of all, the limited player count to 24, with no way of increasing it to 32, 48, or even the chaotic 64 player Rush that we had in previous titles. I mean, now with Rush, with the maximum of 12 players per team, if you have a heavy tank with 6 players in that tank, that is half the team running in a vehicle. So it's very boring and lackluster for infantry gameplay. And if you have somebody who's really good in a tank, he can absolutely dominate the enemy team because of the small player count, which is present in Battlefield 1 Rush. And also, some certain aspects of teamwork have been removed from Rush and the game in general, as opposed to Battlefield 4. You don't have spawn beacons anymore, which were a big part of Rush. If you got an awesome flank off with your squad, you would put a spawn beacon down and get your teammates to spawn on there, and then you could cap the enemy from behind or get a good flank off and surprise the enemy from behind. But it's not really possible anymore in Battlefield 1. You pretty much have to fight through the choke points, which are presented to you in the Rush game mode itself in the map, and try and get through that and plant the objectives. And it's just a lot less an in-depth game mode as it was before. With 32 players, 48 players, it could get really intense at certain moments, and you'd have these big, massive firefights, and if you were defending, you would set up some nice defensive positions to overlook the objective, or set up some traps for enemies that would come in from the left flank, right flank, or would try to just go down mid with some smoke grenades. So there was a lot of tactics involved, and you had a lot of real estate in the Rush maps, and you still have a lot of real estate to cover in Rush maps in Battlefield 1, but seeing as the player count is so low on Rush and there's nothing you can do about it, it just seems that the game mode is just too boring. There's not enough happening. It's easy to flank because more often than not you won't have any resistance on some of those flanks because the maps are so wide open. I don't per se think it's a flaw in the map design for Rush. I think the Rush maps are actually quite good, and of course, obviously, each map should be tailored for a certain game mode and not just be one map fits all game modes and you pick a certain part of the map for different game modes. Let's say, for example, TDM, you would pick a certain map of, let's say, Sinai Desert for Team Deathmatch, and then the whole map would be Conquest, and then a certain part of the map would be for Domination, and so on and so forth. Ideally, every map should be tailored for a certain game mode and only have that game mode, but I understand why it's not that way. But I just feel as though Rush is such a big part of Battlefield as a franchise now, since Battlefield Bad Company 2, almost as big as Conquest. In Battlefield 4, you could find as many Rush servers as Conquest servers. It was absolutely great. If you preferred that linear style of gameplay with the Rush game mode, you could go in there. If you preferred the more open style gameplay that Conquest offered, you could find those. But now, in Battlefield 1, it's mostly Conquest, Operations, Frontlines. And I think it's kind of unfortunate because Rush just offered that linear gameplay that you could get with these big, awesome firefights, these very tactical moves, trying to defend the MCOM that was planted. I mean, you still have MCOMs in certain game modes like Frontlines at the end, but it's just not the same as classic Rush. Although Frontlines is a very good game mode, very good concept for a game mode, for me, it doesn't replace Rush. And I would love for DICE to make it so that Rush was minimum of 32 players. Minimum 32 players. It will make it so much more engaging to play those game modes on these big wide maps and have these awesome team fights, get some awesome flanks off. And I think that also the spawn beacon was a big part of why Rush was so interesting to me, because it really forced players to work as a team in order to obtain or attain a certain objective on the map, get those MCOMs planted, and end up winning the game. I would like to know your thoughts in the comments down below on why Rush has died down so much since previous titles. If you enjoy Rush at all, like, do you enjoy Rush as a game mode? Have you played Rush in previous titles? And what do you think of the state of Rush in Battlefield 1? Do you think it'll make its way in Battlefield 2018? Do you hope it'll make its way in Battlefield 2018 and go back to its glory days of Battlefield Bad Company 2, 3, and 4? So I want all that in the comments down below. I'll be going through comments. If you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to join the Discord server, link in the description down below. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.